There is something that I want to talk about. Um, there's one thing that the Western countries are doing right now um, to we Africans. The African countries right now are being pressured to change our culture. Um, you see, the Western countries, they have not still gotten over the fact that they are no longer slave masters. They are no longer in a position to be telling us how to live our life, what to say, what to do, and where to go. We are free now. We are independent now. And I don't so much blame them because you see a whole lot of our African leaders running up to these Western countries, you know, asking for some kind of aids, some kind of loans and help and all that. And they're still taking advantage of that. So because of all this colonial mentality that is still prevailing in the heads of these Western countries, I'm talking about America and Europe and UK, they still feel that they're still superior to all the African nations, especially the black African nations. Do you understand? So they feel that it's in their best interest, not just in their best interest, but also in our own interest for them to be telling us what to do at any point in time and things that are right, things that are wrong, and how to live our life. I mean, these people have decimated our countries. They've looted our countries. They have enslaved us. They have, you know, they have impacted so much pain, so much, killed so many millions of our citizens, our people here. And they still not enough with that. They still got, that's not enough for them. You know what I'm saying? And why I'm saying this, you will be asking, the reason I'm saying this is, I made mention of this in one of my podcasts where I told you guys that Barack Obama became president of America as the first black president in 2008. And guess who was more proud for him? It was the African nations. You know what I'm saying? Because that was like, a breakthrough of the century for a black man to lead the most powerful nation in the world. We were very proud of him. Now, what did Africans really benefit from Barack Obama's presidency, 8 years of presidency in America? The main thing that I remember that Obama tried to project to African culture was gays and lesbianism. Do you understand? And transgender propagandas, agendas or whatever. So you see, when Barack Obama came to Kenya to visit, I believe that was 2016 or no, I think that was a year before he left office, 2015, thereabout. The main thing that he tried to bring to his home country, Kenya, where he's actually from, was to import a white man's culture to our culture in Africa. He was trying to educate Africans in Kenya, Kenyan government, to recognize a white man's culture. I don't even see that. I'm talking, I see gays and lesbianism as a white man's new culture. Try to convince the Kenyan government to recognize gays, lesbians, and transgender and encourage it. And encourage also the education of those kind of people. Now that's against our culture. And I'm glad and I'm still proud of Kenyatta that standing his ground to let Barack Obama know back then that we have our culture, which we don't impose on anybody. So you cannot come to our country to impose your culture on us. Slavery is gone. And as a black man, Barack Obama being a black man, that was a shame. That was the biggest insult, disrespect he could have given, that he gave to we Africans. Do you understand? Now, they've not given up there. These gays, lesbian, and transgender communities are still pushing the White House, pushing the narrative in Europe and UK, and trying to still immerse this whole idea into African culture. Okay? Now, recently, they are using CNN, of course, to push this agenda. And when Ruto, the new Kenyan president, entered office, the first interview he had with CNN, with Christina Amanpour, instead of asking about development of Kenya, this woman was pushing about gays and lesbian and transgender agenda in Kenya. I mean, knowing fully well that it is against the constitution of the country. So now you're pushing the new president to try and change the constitution, to try to change our African culture that we were born with and raised with. I've never seen this kind of hypocrisy in my life. Now, what I want you to see now, I want you to watch that they still continue pushing this through their NGOs. CNN and all that organizations, they're still pushing the American government, the UK, European, using all kind of threats, all kind of, financial threat and political threat against these countries, these weak countries, that is, as they see it, to make amends to accommodate these sexual agendas. Do you understand? Now, it has gotten to a point where they pushed as far as going to the Supreme Court of Kenya. And the Supreme Court of Kenya, after high influences by these Western countries, has succumbed to make way for the consideration of these sexual differences to be accepted in Kenya. But I think there's still chance, because now some of the politicians are fighting back. So I want you to watch this video, and you're going to see how Kenyatta, current President Ruto, reacted and responded to the same Christina Amanpour when she tried to push that agenda, and how the current parliament, the parliamentarians of Kenyan government are actually reacting to the recent judgment of the Kenya Supreme Court. Just go through it and you see what I'm talking about. We Africans. I don't see we Africans going to the Western world to tell them to accept any part of our culture. Now, polygamy is legal in Africa. In almost all African countries. Polygamy is part of us. A man can marry more than one wife. It's been like that all through the history of black Africans. Now, I wonder how they will feel if we become powerful militarily, financially, and we go to their own countries and ask them to change their constitution or change their ways to accept polygamy. In America, polygamy is illegal. It's a crime. You must be they practice monogamy. One man to one woman to one man. In Europe, it's the same. In UK, United Kingdom, is the same. They practice monogamy. We practice both monogamy and polygamy. And we not pressing these people to change their own culture and practice polygamy. I mean, we come to the Western world and we marry their women one at a time. If we go and marry more than one of their women, we go to jail. That is their law. So the big question is why they keep insisting to come to our countries and preach to us and want us to change our law, our sexual law, our sexual orientation. They know our culture forbids it, but they are pressing on using threats of political and financial sanctions and all kind of influences through their NGOs and media to press us. What are they trying to achieve? This is horrible and concerning. All right? Now, just watch these videos. And you must know, culture is culture. It goes back centuries back. So you just can't come from nowhere and change it. And it's not going to happen. Because even if you influence a particular government to make changes, the next government that will come in might expunge it. We Africans, and we will remain Africans. So something needs to get into their head to stop their encroachment into our culture. Much love, man. Just watch this and make your comment, share it, subscribe, like it, whatever. All right? Peace.
I've been consistent all across Africa on this. I believe in the principle of treating people equally under the law, and that they are deserving of equal protection under the law, and that the state should not discriminate against people based on their sexual orientation. And I say that recognizing that there may be people who have different religious or cultural beliefs. But the issue is, how does the state operate relative to people?
The fact of the matter is that Kenya and the United States, we share so many values. Our common love for democracy, entrepreneurship, value for families. These are things that we share. But there are some things that we must admit we don't share. Our culture, our societies don't accept. It's very difficult for us to be able to impose on people that which they themselves do not accept. This is why I repeatedly say that for Kenyans today, the issue of gay rights is really a non-issue. We want to focus on other areas that are day-to-day living for our people.
One of the major issues, and it's a holdover from sort of colonial Victorian, is the issue of sexual preference in many African countries. In Kenya, to be gay, the LGBT community is illegal. They just want to have equal rights, the same privacy and equality as all other Kenyans do. Is that something that you aspire to for your country?
I want to be very clear, Christiana. I will not engage in a subject that is of no, it is not of any major importance to the people and the Republic of Kenya. This is not an issue, as you would want to put it, of human rights or this. This is an issue of society, of our own base as a culture, as a people, regardless of which community you come from. This is not acceptable. This is not agreeable. This is not about Uhuru Kenyatta saying yes or no. This is an issue that the people of Kenya themselves, who have bestowed upon themselves a constitution, right, after several years, have clearly stated that this is not a subject that they are willing to engage in, yeah, at this time and moment. In years to come, possibly long after I'm president, who knows? Maybe our society will have reached a stage where those are issues that people are willing, freely and open to discuss. I have to be honest with you. And that is the position that we have always maintained. Those are the laws that we have, and those are laws that are 100% supported by 99% of the Kenyan people, irregardless of where they come from.
So I
It's a very
you're going to get
difficult-
yourself into trouble. Because what you've categorically just stated is that this is not an issue for us, for the Kenyan people,
Yes.
and you don't think that the idea of their privacy, their equality, their rights is
Christian,
important.
This is,
but it's a global issue right now.
It's important to them where they are.
Why is it not
I am
important
saying
to you
that it
as
is
president
not
of the country?
important to me as the leader of 49 million Kenyans. And after, if you want to ask me my personal opinion,
What is your personal opinion?
after I finish my process, I can talk about my personal opinion. But as the leader of the people of the Republic of Kenya, I represent that which our people are desirous to be. And I have no choice, but that is my position.
Would you publicly say that people who are LGBT, gay members of the Kenyan population should not be discriminated against, should not be violated, should not be abused?
No Kenyan should be abused, should be, mistreated in any particular. Every Kenyan is protected by law, every single Kenyan. But they also must recognize that their freedoms are also must be taken into the entire context of the society that they live in. Because this is not a question of governments accepting or not accepting. This is a question of society, right?
Currently, it's a
Accepting.
legal process.
Yes. And that legal process is based on the society that you live in, and that's why laws are made. So I think that's all I have to say about that particular subject.
You yourself gained worldwide attention a few years ago when you said there was, quote, no room for homosexuality in Kenyan society. I want to know whether you still stand by that.
We have Kenyan law, we have Kenyan constitution, we have our tradition, we have our customs. We will continue to respect other people's customs as they respect our customs and our tradition. I am very clear that we respect everybody and what they believe in. But we also have what we believe in, and we expect to be respected for what we believe in.
You've just said that you're kind of trying to thread the needle, that the law says one thing, but you respect everybody's rights. Will a Ruto administration crack down, like many other leaders in Africa, on the homosexual LGBTQ community, or will you allow them their human rights and their civil rights?
I think on that subject, President Kenyatta was spot on. We do not want to create a mountain out of a molehill. This is not a big issue for the people of Kenya. When it becomes a big issue for the people of Kenya will make a choice. As it is now, we are grappling with 5 million young people who do not have jobs, 4 million people who are hungry, and that is my concern. That is the focus of the people of Kenya at the moment.
Honorable Speaker, our laws are quite clear. Our penal code still has outlawed issues to do with homosexuality. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, it was absurd that a good number in the Supreme Court did find it fit to allow a habit or something that is already outlawed under our laws, that you could now allow people to associate. What happens tomorrow, Honorable Speaker, if all the pickpockets in our streets decide now that they have rights as pickpockets and they want to form the Association of Nairobi Street Pocket Thieves, or even robbers, bank robbers? Tomorrow, robbers may decide that we have certain rights under the Constitution, the right to association. But, Honorable Speaker, the Constitution also says that your rights are limited.
The West has never been a moral authority. These are the people who came and enslaved us. And they came and colonized us. And they came and treated us like animals. And now they want to tell us to behave like animals. The next thing that's going to come up...
Honorable Farah Malim, which animals engage in homosexuality?
No, you're right. I'm sorry. I withdraw that bit. I withdraw that bit in the interest and the respect for the animal kingdom. The animal kingdom never engages in that. But the next thing they're going to tell us is that somebody has a right, a man has a right to marry a woman. They want to tell us that a woman has a right, to marry another man, or a woman has a right to marry a woman. What do two women who are married do? What is there? God has created a man and a woman. It's there in all the Abrahamic scriptures. It's in Islam. It's in Christianity. It's in Judaism. If we allow them to take over our lives, we have allowed them for far too long for them to exploit us and to dehumanize us as human beings. On this, we will say no. If they're going to come up with the travel, what they call restrictions, keep your country, keep your cultures, keep your nonsense to yourselves. And I'm talking to the West in this case here.
It is quite clear from our books that some of these things in LGBTQ are actually outlawed. And therefore, anything associated with those characters cannot be allowed to stand against the morals of the people of Kenya. Whether it's sodomy, whether it's lesbianism, whether it's queerness, whether it is anything that is outward practiced by these characters who say they have human rights. They may have their rights in private, and I'm sorry, I shiver and shudder when I imagine what they do in private, because it is totally repugnant, especially to us Africans. It's also important to condemn those who come with these ideas. And this is why today we celebrate the President of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni. We celebrate the late Robert Mugabe of Uganda. And sometimes it actually appears Idi Amin himself was a saint, because these are the things he was condemning those days, in spite of being incited by these same Europeans and Americans to kill a few Ugandans. Therefore, we as Africans must stand up. We must stand to be counted. We must tell these Europeans and Americans that for the little money they are enticing us with, I'm told they're even offering relief food to Kenyans so that you can legalize things like this one. They have been approaching our organizations, including the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, offering tokens so that they can promote rights of such characters. Thank heavens, these commissions and these organizations have said no to their little tokens. Let them keep their bad habits in Europe, in America. Let us as Africans keep what we consider to be morally upright and suitable for our society.
Speaker, I am a watcher and I'm a fan of National Geographic, which has documentaries. You see male animals being attracted to females, fighting to death. I have never seen a male animal raising to satisfy itself sexually on another male animal. So what are they telling us, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, this country, and I want to hear the leadership of this country speak against this. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I think the president of this country should write immediately to the Attorney General to appeal this ruling. It cannot be bearable. Yes, Kenya is a Christian nation. It has Muslims. It has all denominations. But Mr. Speaker, our constitution is supreme. 11 explicitly said it. The Ashpal guy spoke about it, his commission, the bombers 1 and 2, they were against this. How can we then, 2023, admit the gays and lesbians of this world to rule this country? Mr. Speaker, on this seat where I sit from, I am telling people who I represent from Mavoko, if you see gays and lesbians, tell them to be wary of me, because I'm going to tell you what we are going to do with them. So are Kenyans. We cannot allow that, Mr. Speaker. We must condemn this ruling by all means, even if it means us calling those judges to apologize to Kenyans and say they judged and they ruled when they were not sober, Mr. Speaker. Then is when we are going to agree with their ruling. However, Mr. Speaker, this House has a role to legislate and make laws that befit this country. Let's not forget our mandate. Let us stand by the virtues. And
look at the ruling by the Supreme Court, whichever way it was, has gone against the Constitution, Article 11. And therefore, it means that judgment which was made by the Supreme Court is null and void because it is against the Constitution. And there is nothing else we can say about it. We will still consider in this House that that law never existed. That judgment was never made. We just consider it as if there was nothing done. As if the Supreme Court judges, if there was 6, if there was 7, they sat in vain. Whatever the decision they made in that particular judgment, it was done in vain. Because Article 11 is very clear. No same-sex marriage is allowed in this country. No same-sex relationship is allowed in this country. No same-sex penetration is allowed in this country, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, when these particular courts declare or presume to be making a declaration that they are making a judgment, they are giving a ruling that we allow these people to have a relationship, we allow these people to look at one another, we allow these people to have some association. Mr. Speaker, that is going contrary to the Constitution. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I would want to say, just like what my senior said, do we need to tell these judges to revoke